Winning Blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to a special edition of In the Lab Room. It's a special Monday evening edition of In the Lab Room. I've never done an episode this late before, but hey, when you have this much news in front of you, and I've done some really jam-packed episodes before, and I'm not saying this being tongue-in-cheek. I'm not saying this just to be saying it. I literally mean this. I think that this may be the most jam-packed episode I've ever had. And we've had some wall-to-wall episodes where it's been non-stop from start to finish, but this one may take the cake. So without any further ado, let's get right to the news in the National Football League. And we start in Oakland because this move is starting off a chain of events that may take place in the National Football League where other teams may be making moves because of a move made in Oakland on Monday. And so we start with the Raiders trading for Matt Flynn with the Seattle Seahawks. The Raiders will get Matt Flynn, and in exchange, the Seattle Seahawks will receive a 2014 fifth-round pick and a conditional pick in the 2015 NFL Draft. So the Raiders now look like a team that has the flexibility that if they so desire, can trade a guy like Carson Palmer, who is due $13 million in this coming season. And so if you're the Raiders, there's no hesitation here. You call up the Arizona Cardinals, and it looks like this deal is in the works. And you figure out what is it going to take to get the Arizona Cardinals to take Carson Palmer off your hands. And so the Raiders have essentially really shook up their quarterback position because right now, before this trade went down, you go into the season thinking, okay, can Terrell Pryor outduel Carson Palmer, who right now was on the hook for $13 million, and the Raiders didn't want to pay him that kind of money. They actually wanted him to take a $3 million pay cut. Carson Palmer did not want any part of that pay cut, and so I didn't know how long the Raiders were going to stand back and allow Palmer to be on the roster. And so you looked at it from afar and you said, okay, can Carson Palmer hang on to the starting job in Oakland? Was Palmer going to be able to hold off Terrell Pryor, or was Terrell Pryor going to finally get a chance in Oakland to show what he can do? And now all of a sudden, the Raiders go out and get Matt Flynn. He's going to come in and compete for a starting job. And if you listen to Dennis Allen, the Oakland Raiders head coach, this thing isn't just Matt Flynn's to lose. Terrell Pryor is seriously in consideration for the starting job, and he should have the upper hand. He should have a leg up in the competition because he was in this system with Dennis Allen last year. And so if he was there a year earlier, he should have a leg up on this playbook and on what the Raiders are looking for from their quarterback. And so you got to think Terrell Pryor should be the leader in the clubhouse. But keep in mind, the Raiders GM, Reggie McKenzie, came from Green Bay. Matt Flynn drafted in Green Bay. So here's a guy in Matt Flynn who is coming into Oakland into a situation where the GM knows who he is. He drafted Matt Flynn in Green Bay. And so Reggie McKenzie is very comfortable with the idea of Matt Flynn coming in and being the guy in Oakland. So Terrell Pryor could be on the outside looking in at the starting position for the Oakland Raiders as their quarterback. Now you look at Carson Palmer, and he has absolutely no intention of staying in Oakland, and the Raiders have absolutely no intentions of holding on to him in Oakland. And so it's only a matter of time now. It's a formality. Carson Palmer to X. Now you figure out what that X is. Is it Arizona? That's what the reports have been, that the Arizona Cardinals and the Oakland Raiders have been talking about a deal sending Palmer to the Cardinals for a late round draft choice in the 2013 draft. That's been discussed, but we don't know what is going to unfold in Oakland, but that seems to be the most logical landing spot for Carson Palmer. You also look at this, and I talked about all the dominoes really being set in motion and possibly being knocked down by this move. Flynn going to the Raiders. So with Flynn coming to Oakland, that makes Carson Palmer expendable. If Carson Palmer does in fact go to Arizona, the Cardinals have already released John Skelton. So his tumultuous career in Arizona finished. They released him. He's no longer an Arizona Cardinal. So if Palmer in fact lands in Arizona, there's been talks already of potentially having their backup quarterback as it stands right now, Brian Hoyer, being traded to somewhere like Pittsburgh. The Steelers are very interested. And remember, the Steelers don't have their backup quarterbacks anymore. Byron Leftwich and Charlie Batch are both gone from Pittsburgh, and so they could use a backup quarterback. Now, remember, they went out and got Bruce Gradkowski earlier in the offseason to the Steelers, but Brian Hoyer, by a lot of accounts, seems to be a guy that can play in the National Football League, maybe not as your starter, but as a very competent backup. And so maybe the Steelers see him as an upgrade over Bruce Gradkowski. And with the Steelers, they need 3 quarterbacks. Some teams can get away with just 2 on the roster. Not the Steelers because of Ben Roethlisberger's history. You got to keep 3 quarterbacks if you're the Steelers. And so Brian Hoyer could be in play in Pittsburgh. And so the dominoes could fall after this move. Flynn going to Oakland, Palmer going to Arizona, Hoyer then going on to Pittsburgh. Maybe. And so, wow, this move could set off a chain of events in the National Football League. But seems like right now it's backup quarterback musical chairs in the National Football League. And earlier in the offseason, I talked about how important and how undervalued I thought that the backup quarterback position was in the National Football League. Now you're starting to see an importance being put on that position as guys like Jason Campbell have signed with the Cleveland Browns. Colt McCoy, remember I talked about this last week. The Browns said, oh, just because we got Jason Campbell doesn't mean Colt McCoy is going anywhere. Colt McCoy isn't going anywhere. And I said, and I quickly glossed over this because I didn't pay them one bit of mind when they said that. I said, look, how many times have we heard teams say that a player wasn't going anywhere only to see that player a week later do exactly what that team said they weren't going to do? In this case, the Browns said, hey, we're not trading Colt McCoy. We're not releasing him. He's not going anywhere. Well, today, the Browns traded Colt McCoy to the San Francisco 49ers. And so just like that, that game of musical chairs with all these backup quarterbacks is going around and around and around. And Colt McCoy has moved on from Cleveland, where he was basically ousted and exiled. Now he's in San Francisco. Well, he'll be the backup quarterback. And there's not another guy in San Francisco right now, unless you want to count Scott Tolzien. He's going to be the backup in San Francisco. And again, when you have a scrambling quarterback like the 49ers do in Colin Kaepernick, you need a backup quarterback. You never know when you're going to need that guy to step in and play for you. And so Colt McCoy is a solid option out there. He won't win you many ball games, won't lose them either. And I think if he just plays within the scheme, he'll be fine. And so Colt McCoy is now a San Francisco 49er, was traded to San Francisco. The Browns gave up Colt McCoy and a 6th-round selection. Meanwhile, the San Francisco 49ers received Colt McCoy and that 6th-round selection and sent in turn to Cleveland a 5th and a 7th-round selection. So good move for both parties involved. The 49ers get a much-needed backup quarterback. The Browns get more draft picks to try and help bolster their roster. So solid move by both teams involved. You look at more backup quarterback news in the National Football League. Over the weekend, Kevin Kolb signs in Buffalo. Oh, no. Say it's not so, Buffalo. Are you that desperate for quarterback help that you go barking up the Kevin Kolb tree? Yes, it is the case in Buffalo as they sign Kevin Kolb to a 2-year, $13 million deal. Now, the deal can get up to about $13 million in incentives, but it's more along the lines of a $9 million, $10 million deal. Incentives can kick it up to $13 million, but Kevin Kolb is in play in Buffalo, and who knows? He might even be able to wrestle that job away from Tavares Jackson. Who knows what the Bills are doing? And now this makes you think, are the Bills still in play for a quarterback at 8? The way this thing is shaping up with the Raiders making this move, and we already know that with that number 1 overall selection, I don't think he's in play. Geno Smith isn't going to be a Kansas City Chief. Maybe Jacksonville might go barking up that tree, but I don't see the Jaguars investing in another early round selection at the quarterback position. And so with the Raiders going out and making this move, I don't think they're going to be looking for a quarterback in the top 10. And so I don't think Geno Smith will be going to the Raiders. So then you look at Arizona, and if they in fact do trade for Carson Palmer, do you go for a quarterback still in the draft? I don't think so. And if you're the Bills, you just went out and got Kevin Kolb and you have Tavares Jackson. Is Geno Smith a guy that you want to add to that mix? Maybe. But if not, Geno Smith could slip right out of the top 10. Just like that. I mean, we were talking about this guy potentially going number 1, potentially going number 2, potentially going number 3 for the last 3 weeks. And all of a sudden, after a chain of events that may be kicked off by this Matt Flynn trade, he might not even go in the top 10. It's amazing how fluid this situation is. That's why you got to love the way the draft is set up now with this rookie wage scale. No one's afraid to trade away picks, and you don't feel like you're handcuffed to these picks early on in the draft. So you don't know what's going to occur. You don't know what teams are going to trade picks away and what teams are going to select who. And with the quarterback crop being so weak this year, you can't say that this is going to happen, that's going to happen. It's anybody's guess as to what's going to occur in the draft this season. But a lot of quarterbacks are moving around, and it's really affecting what's going on in the draft. Also, Bears sign up one of the McCown brothers. They get Josh, and Luke goes to New Orleans. So backups swirling around everywhere. It's backup chaos in the National Football League. But that's the way it should be because everyone needs a backup quarterback. Can't say it enough. So now that we've gotten that quarterback carousel out of the way, let's keep this train moving. As I've told you already, a lot to get to, so let's just keep going in the same direction, full speed ahead. So you look at Kevin Walter and Chris Spencer. They both signed with the Tennessee Titans. Kevin Walter, a veteran receiver, played his whole career with the Houston Texans. Chris Spencer, a guard that played with the Chicago Bears a season ago, spent a lot of his career with the Seattle Seahawks, is now going to be a Tennessee Titan. Both players signed 1-year deals with the Titans. I mean, if you're the Titans, I don't really know where you're going with this. I feel like Kevin Walter is a solid receiver at best. And Chris Spencer, to me, his best days are far behind him at the guard position. If this is depth, fine. And I think it is. I don't think you're looking for him to start. But again, with you signing up Levitri and Hutchinson retiring, you still need one more guard. And so wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Chris Spencer at some point in the 2013 season might have to start for the Tennessee Titans. We'll see. But Kevin Walter is a solid addition. As long as you're not asking him to start for you, Kevin Walter is a guy that can help you at the receiver position. He's a big target in the red zone. Maybe he's a guy that Jake Locker can rely on to just throw it up to and have him come down with the football. He's got a big, long 6'3" frame. Maybe he'll help in that capacity. I don't know. But those two are now Tennessee Titans. Huge news over the weekend. Brent Grimes finally is off the market. Signs a one-year deal to join the Miami Dolphins. What an offseason the Dolphins have had to this point. Adding another huge piece to the mix in cornerback Brent Grimes. Now, again, he's coming off of an ACL tear. So you don't know exactly what you're getting out of Brent Grimes. But if it's anything like the Brent Grimes we've seen over the years in Atlanta, especially the one we saw 2 years ago that made it to the Pro Bowl and was a very dominant corner, then the Dolphins have a very good secondary that they're forming in Miami. And so this is a very solid move by the Miami Dolphins. And when you have money to spend, no need in being frugal. If you have a lot of deficiencies on your roster and you can't fill them all through the draft, don't be afraid to spend some money. And the Miami Dolphins have not been afraid in this offseason to spend some money. Going out and getting guys like L.A.B, Philip Wheeler. You throw this guy, Brent Grimes, into the mix. And you say to yourself, the Dolphins have really helped themselves in this offseason. They re-sign Brian Hartline. They go and add another guy in Brandon Gibson. They just have been doing a lot of things. And, of course, their big free agent fish, the one that they were really chasing and looking to land, Mike Wallace. And so they've made extreme upgrades to their roster at the Miami Dolphins. And so they're looking to really contend in the AFC East this year. And I think they're the team that can knock the Patriots off if they play consistent football. They've given way more than enough targets to Ryan Tannehill now. They re-signed guys like Randy Stark, slapped the franchise tag on him. Chris Clemens is going to be back. And so I think that the Miami Dolphins are building something. Now, again, on paper, it means absolutely nothing. It looks great, but means nothing. They have to come together, build some sort of continuity over this offseason, and come together and gel. But here's another piece to the puzzle, if you are the Dolphins, in helping you unseat the New England Patriots. Brent Grimes coming over, one-year deal, $5.5 million. This is a good signing for the Miami Dolphins. So you look at another guy that has found a home, and this one, no one knows anything about. Everyone's pretty much at a loss on this one. We're all starting to learn more and more about the wide receiver out of Boston College, Afani Moma. That's right, Afani Moma. This is a 6'7" receiver that reportedly runs a 4.40. Yes, I did not stutter. 6'7" receiver running a 4.40. Now, you ask yourself, why didn't this guy have a job already? And why wasn't this guy drafted in the 2012 NFL draft when he was supposed to be drafted? Well, his senior year at Boston College in 2011 started with a bang and ended with a bang, all at the same time. His first game of the season in 2011, his senior year, he had about 7 grabs for close to 100 yards receiving and a touchdown or two in the game, was having a really good football game, tore a ligament in his knee, ended his season, ended his career at Boston College effectively. He missed the draft, couldn't work out for teams, was injured. And so he basically flew under the radar. No one signed him. No one gave him a free agent rookie deal. None of that. He just was out of football in 2012. Here comes Chip Kelly. He's in the league. He remembers this guy from Boston College and says, hey, why don't we give him a try? He's 6'7". He runs a 4.40 reportedly, and so he's now a Philadelphia Eagle. Chip Kelly is coming in and just changing the face of the Philadelphia Eagles. Nothing is the way you remember it in Philadelphia. All the way up into the quarterback position, where Dennis Dixon is now beating down the door and looking to threaten Michael Vick for the starting job. And so that team is going to look immensely different in the 2013 season. Add Afani Moma to that mix as well. That's a huge guy. So we're going to see if he's able to help the Philadelphia Eagles at all in the 2013 season. In some breaking news, DeAngelo Hall re-signs with the Washington Redskins. And it's a 1-year, $2.25 million deal. So DeAngelo Hall is back in the fold in Washington. And I don't know what this means for the Redskins courting and potentially chasing after Antoine Winfield. Don't know if he's still in play or not in D.C. But usually when a guy takes this long to make a decision, the longer he takes and waits, the more likely it is he's going back to the team that released him. And so I put my money on Antoine Winfield returning to Minnesota. That was always in play. Much like DeAngelo Hall coming back to Washington, I'd expect Antoine Winfield to return to Minnesota as well. But DeAngelo Hall is in fact going to be back in D.C. That is a fact. We don't know what Antoine Winfield is going to do, but we do know what DeAngelo Hall is going to do and where he'll be playing his football in the 2013 season. And it will be back in D.C. with the Washington Redskins. He finished up the 2012 campaign very strongly, playing his best football at the end of the season against the Dallas Cowboys in that division-clinching win in Week 17 versus the Cowboys. He held Des Bryant to only 4 catches, and he really played some good football. And he really extended that into the postseason, playing really good against the Seattle Seahawks. And so he was slated to make too much money. He was slated to make $8 million in the 2013 season. Redskins couldn't afford to pay him that kind of money. Had to cut ties with him to recoup some of that money for the cap. And now he's going to be back in the fold with the Redskins. And it's a solid move, again, for both parties involved. Can DeAngelo Hall boost back up his market value by playing some stellar corner for the Redskins in 2013? And whether he does or not, the Redskins need help at the cornerback position. He's a guy that can afford them that help. Now, he was part of the problem in 2012, but he also happened to be part of the solution toward the end of the season. And if he can play the way that he played toward the end of the season, the Redskins will be in much better shape for it in the 2013 season. So that's a touchdown. Go ahead and throw it up. Want to tackle on this quick extra point. So we talked about Brendan Albert probably about 3 weeks to a month ago. And we talked about how he did not want to make the switch from left tackle to right tackle. In his mind, he's a left tackle. And there's several different reasons why he didn't want to make the switch. A, ego. The left tackle position is without a doubt the most prestigious on the offensive line. There's not another position on the line that can hold a candle to the responsibility of being a left tackle in the National Football League. And so with being a left tackle comes great responsibility. And with that responsibility comes great accolades. And with those great accolades comes great pay. And so all of those reasons are why Brendan Albert does not want to make that switch to right tackle, the less glamorous of the tackle positions. And so he's not happy about potentially being moved, because I feel like, and I feel like everyone else feels like, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to use their first overall selection in the 2013 draft on a left tackle. And if they do that, they're not doing it to put him at right tackle. They're doing it to put him at the left tackle position and kick Brendan Albert over to right tackle. And so It's going to be a huge move for the Chiefs, but Brendan Albert doesn't agree with it. And he showed just how much he disagrees with the move by not showing up for a voluntary minicamp that the Kansas City Chiefs started on Monday. And they had just about full attendance with the exception of one. You guessed it, Brendan Albert did not show up and doesn't plan on showing up for any workouts for the Chiefs. So this is a developing story in Kansas City. What will Brendan Albert do? Because they franchised him. He can't go anywhere. And so all the cards right now are being held by the Kansas City Chiefs. He has absolutely no power in this situation, does Brendan Albert. So he can sit out all he likes right now, but when it comes time to play football, he will show up, he will play football, and he'll play football wherever the Chiefs tell him to because he doesn't have a long-term deal in his hand right now. And if he wants to make any kind of money on the market next year, he'll shut up, he'll lace him up, he'll play his best football of his career, whether it's at guard, whether it's at tackle, left or right, doesn't matter. Wherever it is, he needs to go out and play his best football so he can get paid. And so when it's all said and done and the smoke clears and the dust settles, Brendan Albert will be in Kansas City playing probably at right tackle. So just found that to be very interesting. But that's going to do it for this episode of In the Lab Room. We covered a lot. It's been a whirlwind. A lot that we got to today. Felt like we covered everything. There was so much that happened over the weekend, so many things that transpired on Monday. And so we touched over a lot of it. And so that's how you do it. You get everything into a nice condensed package. And that's what we were able to do today. So thank you for joining me here on the program. There's many ways to view or contact the show, as you know. There's Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. There's Twitter. At In the Lab Room is the Twitter handle. There's YouTube. Louis T is the page. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. There's so much content coming out of this page. Please subscribe to the page. Again, Louis T is the page. Subscribe. And also, there's the inbox. In the Lab Room at gmail.com is the inbox. Also, I just started writing for a site called Before the Snap. It's a blog site that has a ton of information. We do podcasts, we write articles, and so I am the NFC East contributor to the site. And I've written several articles already. I've written 2 on the Redskins. I've written 1 on the Giants. I've written 1 on Dallas and the Tony Romo contract. And so check it out. There's other talented writers on the site as well. Check out the podcast. Enjoy the site. It's beforethesnap.com. You'll love the content on the site. So in addition to this page, check out that website. Again, beforethesnap.com. A lot of good content there as well as here. And so I thank you for joining me on the program. Want to see you back here, same time, same place. And as always, have a good one. I will see you here tomorrow when hopefully things have calmed down considerably in the National Football League. Have a good one.